In the ever-evolving landscape of American politics, few figures have been as vocal and influential as James Carville, the seasoned Democratic strategist who played a pivotal role in Bill Clinton's 1992 presidential victory. Known for his sharp wit and unapologetic commentary, Carville has recently found himself at odds with the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, represented by figures like Senator Bernie Sanders and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC. Carville's critique centers on the effectiveness of progressive messaging and its appeal to the broader electorate. During a recent appearance on News Nation's Cuomo, he expressed skepticism about the strategies employed by Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez. He remarked, "Bernie has run for president twice, he's lost twice, AOC and her kind. They want to run against other Democrats. They don't want to run against Republicans. When you beat a Republican, come back and see me and I'll be impressed." This statement underscores Carville's belief that internal party conflicts and ideological purity tests may not be the most effective approach in securing electoral victories. He suggests that the focus should shift towards uniting against Republican opposition rather than engaging in intra-party disputes. On the other hand, Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez have been vocal proponents of a more progressive agenda, advocating for policies such as universal health care, climate action, and economic reforms aimed at reducing income inequality. Their recent Fighting Oligarchy tour, which included stops in traditionally conservative states like Arizona, reflects their commitment to challenging the status quo and mobilizing grassroots support. The contrast between Carville's pragmatic approach and the progressive vision championed by Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez highlights a fundamental debate within the Democratic Party. Should the focus be on appealing to the center to win elections, or should the party embrace a more progressive agenda to inspire and mobilize voters? As this ideological battle unfolds, the future of the Democratic Party may hinge on finding a balance between these competing visions. The outcome of this internal struggle could have significant implications for the party's ability to address the challenges posed by the Republican opposition and to effectively represent the diverse interests of the American electorate. While James Carville critiques the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders continue to build momentum with their bold policy proposals and grassroots mobilization efforts. Their recent Fighting Oligarchy tour has drawn large crowds across the country, including in conservative states, signaling a growing appetite for progressive change among the electorate. Ocasio-Cortez, known for her charismatic speaking style and unapologetic advocacy for progressive policies, has become a leading voice in the movement to challenge economic inequality and corporate influence in politics. Her partnership with Sanders, a longtime advocate for democratic socialism, has amplified their message and broadened their reach. During their rallies, Ocasio-Cortez and Sanders have emphasized the dangers of oligarchy and authoritarianism, warning against the concentration of wealth and power in the hands of a few. They argue that the current political system disproportionately benefits the wealthy and powerful, leaving working-class Americans struggling to make ends meet. Their message resonates with many voters who feel left behind by the political establishment. In states like Arizona, where Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez held a joint rally, supporters expressed frustration with the status quo and a desire for bold action to address economic and social injustices. Despite facing criticism from figures like Carville, Ocasio-Cortez and Sanders remain undeterred in their pursuit of a more equitable society. They continue to advocate for policies such as Medicare for All, a Green New Deal, and a $15 minimum wage, aiming to create a political environment that prioritizes the needs of working people over corporate interests. As the 2028 presidential election approaches, the influence of progressive leaders like Ocasio-Cortez and Sanders may shape the direction of the Democratic Party. Their ability to mobilize grassroots support and challenge entrenched power structures could play a pivotal role in determining the party's future trajectory. In response to the growing influence of progressive figures like Ocasio-Cortez and Sanders, James Carville has doubled down on his criticism, warning that the Democratic Party risks alienating moderate voters by embracing a more left-wing agenda. He contends that the party's focus should be on winning elections and governing effectively rather than pursuing ideological purity. Carville's perspective is informed by his extensive experience in political strategy. He argues that the Democratic Party's success in the past has been rooted in its ability to appeal to a broad coalition of voters, including moderates and independents. By veering too far left, Carville believes the party risks losing touch with these crucial constituencies. He also points to the electoral defeats of progressive candidates as evidence that their message may not resonate with the wider electorate. Carville suggests that the party should focus on issues that have broad appeal, such as healthcare reform and job creation, rather than pursuing policies that may be seen as too radical or divisive. Critics of Carville, however, argue that his approach reflects a dated and overly cautious strategy that fails to address the pressing issues facing the country. They contend that the status quo is no longer acceptable and that bold action is needed to tackle systemic problems like income inequality, climate change, and racial injustice. The debate between Carville's centrist approach and the progressive vision championed by Ocasio-Cortez and Sanders underscores a fundamental divide within the Democratic Party. As the party looks ahead to future elections, it will need to navigate this divide and determine the path that best aligns with the values and aspirations of its diverse base. The ideological clash between James Carville and progressive figures like Ocasio-Cortez and Sanders has been further magnified by media coverage, which often frames the debate in terms of a generational and ideological divide within the Democratic Party. This framing can influence public perception and shape the discourse around key policy issues. Media outlets have highlighted Carville's criticisms of Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez, portraying him as a defender of traditional democratic values against what he sees as a radical shift towards socialism. His remarks have sparked discussions about the future direction of the party and the viability of progressive policies in a general election. Conversely, coverage of Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez often emphasizes their grassroots support and commitment to challenging economic inequality and corporate influence. Their rallies and policy proposals are presented as evidence of a growing movement within the party that seeks to address systemic issues and promote social justice. This media portrayal can contribute to the polarization of the debate, making it more challenging to find common ground between the competing factions within the party. It also risks oversimplifying complex policy discussions and reducing them to sound bites that may not fully capture the nuances of the issues at hand. As the Democratic Party continues to grapple with its identity and direction, the role of the media in shaping the narrative will be crucial, responsible, and balanced. Media coverage will be essential in fostering a more constructive dialogue within the party and helping voters understand the stakes of the ongoing debate. If the media continues to amplify the divide, it could exacerbate tensions and undermine the party's ability to unite around a common cause, especially as it prepares for the 2028 elections. Moreover, the portrayal of Carville, Ocasio-Cortez, and Sanders in the media often reflects broader national trends. The media's framing of political debates has evolved to emphasize conflict and division, which can sometimes detract from the potential for compromise and meaningful policy discussions. In an era of deep political polarization, understanding the role of media in shaping public opinion is crucial for anyone trying to understand the forces at play within American politics. For the Democratic Party, how it navigates its relationship with the media and the portrayal of key figures like Carville, Ocasio-Cortez, and Sanders could determine the direction it takes in future elections. It also raises the question of whether the party can evolve its messaging to accommodate both its progressive base and its moderate wing without alienating either side. As we look ahead to the 2028 presidential election and beyond, the Democratic Party finds itself at a crossroads. The debate between James Carville's centrist approach and the progressive visions of figures like Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is more than just an ideological difference. It reflects deeper questions about the party's identity, strategy, and ability to govern. James Carville's critique of progressive figures is rooted in his belief that the party needs to win over a broad spectrum of voters, including moderates and independents. His strategy calls for a focus on issues that resonate with a wide audience, such as healthcare, job creation, and economic stability. Carville argues that by appealing to the center, the Democratic Party can increase its chances of winning elections and achieving meaningful legislative victories. In contrast, Ocasio-Cortez and Sanders advocate for bold, transformative policies aimed at addressing systemic issues like income inequality, climate change, and healthcare access. Their focus on fighting oligarchy and challenging the concentration of wealth and power in the hands of a few has earned them a dedicated following, particularly among younger voters and those disillusioned with the political establishment. However, their critics argue that their policies may be too radical and could alienate moderate voters, making it harder to win swing states and secure a victory in a general election. The key challenge for the Democratic Party in the coming years will be finding a way to reconcile these two visions. The party cannot afford to lose sight of its broader goal to defeat the Republican Party and win back the White House. But it also cannot ignore the growing demand for progressive change from its base. Striking the right balance between these competing factions will require a nuanced approach that recognizes the need for both bold policy reforms and strategic coalition building. One possible path forward is for the Democratic Party to adopt a platform that includes a mix of progressive policies and centrist ideas. This could involve championing issues like healthcare reform, climate action, and economic justice while also appealing to moderate voters with pragmatic solutions to issues like job creation, national security, and fiscal responsibility. In the end, the future of the Democratic Party will depend on its ability to adapt to the changing political landscape and to unify its diverse base around a shared vision for the future. The divide between figures like James Carville, Bernie Sanders, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez may not be easily bridged, but it is a conversation the party cannot afford to avoid. How the Democratic Party addresses these internal divisions will shape the outcome of future elections and determine the direction of American politics for years to come. As we move forward into an uncertain political future, it is clear that the stakes are high. The ideological battle within the Democratic Party is not just a contest of ideas, it is a battle for the soul of the party and the future of the nation. Whether the party can reconcile its differences and build a winning coalition will have profound implications for the political landscape in the coming decades. The debate between James Carville, Bernie Sanders, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is part of a broader conversation about the future of American politics. At its core, this debate reflects a clash between two visions for the country, one that seeks to preserve the status quo and another that strives for transformative change. As the Democratic Party grapples with its identity and strategy, it must remember that the political landscape is always shifting. What works in one election cycle may not be effective in the next. The party must remain flexible and responsive to the needs and concerns of its diverse electorate, all while staying true to its core values of justice, equality, and opportunity for all Americans. Whether the future of the Democratic Party lies in Carville's pragmatic centrism or the bold progressivism of Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez remains to be seen. However, what is clear is that the party is at a critical juncture and the choices made in the coming years will have lasting consequences for the country. Only time will tell whether the Democratic Party can find a way to bridge its internal divisions and unite around a shared vision for the future. In the meantime, the voices of James Carville, Bernie Sanders, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez will continue to shape the national discourse and provide insight into the evolving dynamics of American politics. The path forward is uncertain, but one thing is clear: the debate is far from over.